Hi, this is AJ LoCascio, Gambit on X-Men 97, and you're listening to A Stark Contrast with Geoffrey and Di. Y'all catch the series now streaming, mon ami.
Hello and welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we're your hosts, Geoffrey
and Di.
Hello, and welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
Wow. It's like I imagine him jumping through the smoke with the cars.
Yeah. Right?
Wow.
Yes. So right up top, thanks to our amazing introduction to the episode from AJ LoCascio.
Wow.
Our Gambit.
Why did you make me do the intro?
The excitement has now come. I had to maneuver that one for Geoff so that he could be surprised coming in. But yeah, so AJ, I mean, hilarious, amazing, adorable person he is, came through, and yeah, I've seen him a couple times by now.
Nice.
Walked up. He's like, I know you. I'm like, no. Crazy Gambit girl's back.
Yeah, and I just watched. The Assembled of X-Men 97.
Yes, which is amazing.
Yeah, so like watching like his behind the scenes and him being like, taking on this role, and obviously the original Gambit is in the show, but he's not playing Gambit.
Yeah, Chris
so
Potter.
It's like, he was like, whoa, but knowing that he's the one who really he's very influenced by Gambit.
Oh yes,
like when he did the voice, and so him to get cast, it was really cool. But killed it.
I mean, we'll talk about this very briefly, that there are different versions of this character as far as voice actors go, but truly, Chris Potter set such a tone to that character that the fact that AJ has now taken that baton and ran with it is the best possible thing anyone could have expected for this character that I, for one, adore more than anything. But yeah, speaking of the Assembled, yeah, absolutely loved it. I watched it at Scum and Villainy.
That's right.
Right. I went to Scum and Villainy to have a proper watch party with Lenore Zan, Christine Uebe, and Guy Agostini, who are, of course, Rogue, Nina DaCosta, and Sunspot. And yeah, it was a great time. I mean, I was so excited to not only see them tackle the original actors who were returning, as well as the, AJ and Matthew Watterson, who plays Magneto. But on top of that, Larry Houston, the director, producer from the original series, as well as my beloved Lee Walds.
Yes, the Lee Walds.
They're so cute. I love them so much. But yeah, that Assembled was fantastic. I need to watch it again on a proper screen because I was at a bar.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. But in true form, absolutely love that production. Still kind of weird that they don't promote it anymore. They just kind of drop it and they're like, it's out.
Yeah.
It's very strange to me, but hey, we got it all, so that's great. On the dovetail of that, so I went to Comic-Con Revolution a couple of weekends ago, and the cast was there as well.
Of course.
Henceforth, why I saw AJ and the rest of the guys. That was a great panel. I did mention to AJ, I told him about the podcast and reminded him we're episodic. It comes from two different perspectives. And my friend, he didn't quite grow up with X-Men the way that you and I did, and I was speaking to him. And he goes, oh, yeah. And then I said, so he didn't really understand my love for Gambit until very recently. And then I asked him, hey, do you think you have a favorite? And he said, I think it's Gambit. And he's like, yes, yes. He was so happy.
Yeah,
he was like, yeah, we got him. I was like, yeah, exactly. So that was a nice little experience, a nice little chat that I had with him. And the panel itself was great, and there was just a couple of them there, and including Ross Marquand, who is Professor X, who I don't think I've ever seen him in real life, maybe just in passing, but he's coming off of so many other pop culture franchises.
Yeah, he does a lot.
He does so much if you really think about it. And I was like, gosh, and he always stood out even back in the day when he was on The Walking Dead. I was like, man, this actor's amazing.
Yeah.
And he played a sub-significant character, but to see him now is so incredible, and he is incredible at Professor Xavier. And people were like, yeah, he would actually, if he was bald, put him in the movie.
Honestly,
I was like, ooh,
yeah,
I'd be down for that. But yeah, other than Comic-Con Revolution and then Assembled, I'm gonna try and keep this to strictly X-Men because we are gonna probably dive into one of our longer episodes this time around. Speaking of X-Men 97 soundtrack, it's officially available from the Newton Brothers. It dropped on the 24th. I have not yet streamed it.
Really?
I have not listened to it, but I understand that a few tracks are missing. I guess,
okay.
I don't know, the diehards were like, where's this song? And so I'm sure they're going to release it on a proper vinyl or something, which is why. But yeah, they're the entire show is apparently being nominated for Emmys, and it seems like it's going to win. So we'll see what happens when that happens.
It could win so much. I hope it does.
I know, me too. But yeah, so you think you're ready to go into it, Geoff?
Hey, this is your guy.
I know. I mentioned this in another episode that I wasn't sure who I liked more. Right? I wasn't sure who my number one all-time favorite was, but I think it is Gambit, which is crazy if you think about it, because I do love me some Gwen Stacy.
That is true.
I love me some Spider-Man, but man, about to get in it.
I'm here to learn.
We're going to learn a bit. So just a kind reminder, we are not experts and we don't claim to be. We're just a couple of nerds nerding out. And in this episode, we're going to be swooning over REMY LeBEAU, a.k.a. Gambit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're going. So created by Chris Claremont and Jim Lee. So here we go again. For the first appearance, if we're going by published date, technically, Gambit's first appearance is Uncanny X-Men Annual number 14. And that's considered a cameo. Even though the man has full-fledged, full-body appearances in this comic book, it's still considered a cameo. He even speaks. He even says his name, Gambit. And so I'm going to show you, Geoff, this screenshot. He's full-fledged in these panels. He's just some dude, no introduction. He's in the comic book. Nobody understood, where did this guy come from? And so, depending on who you ask, they'll say that this is his first appearance. But in fact, his true first appearance is Uncanny X-Men number 266. I'm going to cover the price up here for you. And story-wise, the annual comes after this one. It's just that the annual was accidentally published 3 weeks early.
Oh.
So it went to press, it hit the shelves, and people were like, who's Gambit?
Oh, before it even got announced or anything?
Yeah,
or?
So it's a big old error of just okay, thankfully it was only 3 weeks compared to 3 months or something.
Yeah.
But this is the true first appearance of the character. And so, in true form, Geoff, do you want to take a crack at how much this comic book may have been upon release in 1990? 90? He's a young boy.
Oh, God. Okay. What are we?
Tell.
Okay, 60s, 70s. We were in the 15 range. 90s? Is it under $1?
No.
Wow, inflation sucks.
It really jumped.
I'm gonna go a $1.10.
Geoff.
No.
$1 solid.
Ah!
I was like, dude, I can't.
I overcalculated the inflation.
A single $1 would have gotten you this comic book in its heyday. And so, needless to say, we're going to go ahead and detail this specific issue as his first appearance, as it's supposed to be. And the title of the story itself is called Gambit, Out of the Frying Pan. I don't know why.
That's funny.
I don't know why he's out of the fire. I mean, I get it. It's Louisiana. It's Cajun food.
Yeah, exactly.
Fried food. I get it. It's just really funny because it's in huge text. Gambit, out of the frying pan.
That's hilarious.
I need AJ to say that for me next. And so on Shortbox, the highest I found was a CGC 9.8 gold signature series for about $4,000. And then there's also a CGC 9.6 gold signature series signed by cover artist Andy Kubert for $12,000. Whereas on eBay, I found a CGC 9.8 gold signature series triple signed by the team for about $7,500. But the highest priced version of this book is a CGC 9.4 gold signature series sextet signed. That means 6 people signed this cover and double sketched. So there's 2 sketches on the book on top of the 6 signatures for $20,000, and includes everybody that was remotely involved with that issue, including Stanley. So if you got $20,000,
how did someone even get this?
I mean, all it takes is dedication and the correct convention. So if all those people are at that convention at the same time, you bring your book that you bought for $5, $10, $20, $60. You get it signed. You have the witness there with you. Boom, boom, boom. They put it in a plastic bag. You pay the $70 fee. Send it off. You get it back. You can resell that thing.
No wonder the actors be charging for autographs and
That's exactly right. That's exactly why. And so thankfully artists, that's kind of what I do when I, represent that conventions, is that the artists and writers, all these people have the right to charge. A lot of them don't, because maybe they don't need the money. But if someone is bringing you 6 copies of a comic book,
that's fair. Yeah. Like if you were bringing like multiple copies of one like issue or whatever, then it's like, okay, you're obviously doing something.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And so like what we do with Kinetic is that the first 5 are free. First 5 are free, you're good. But every book after that, $5, $20, whatever it is per the person. So that whoever got that 6-timed signed double sketched, I mean, they must have dropped at least $500, $600 to do all that.
Yeah.
But if
to
they're
get
flipping
6 signatures,
plus the sketch, and they must have done it in the 90s, so it was probably
it was kind of like sure, here.
Yeah. So that, good on them, but holy smokes, I will say, I have 2 copies of his first appearance.
Oh, wow.
And one is signed by Jim Lee.
Wow.
That's freaking huge. So
You haven't got it graded?
No, which is my fault. So now I can't get the gold signature because it didn't do it the day of. But I mean, he was signing at some small comic book shop in my neighborhood.
Gold signature means if you get it
there,
like graded at that. Okay.
Specific. So somebody is watching you getting it signed.
Wow.
Yeah. And I saw him 5 minutes down the street from here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there was no grading person. So it's kind of like I just have these books now. But it's okay. It's for me. It's not for anybody else. And so on the lower side of the spectrum, Shortbox had a CGC 5.5 for $110, and eBay had a 6.5 for $200, and that one is even signed.
Wow.
So if you just want this book, I mean, obviously for, he's such a popular character, more than ever. If you just want the book and it's signed, 6.5 isn't bad, but you could probably do better. You just got to pay more. And so the fair market value for his first appearance appears to be about $700. So if you're paying more than that, probably not great. But, it is what it is. Hype is hype. People will take advantage of the spontaneity and spontaneous buying and purchasing. So it's going to happen. And then you can also get this book raw for about $200. I did see on eBay that one recently sold for as low as $80. So you could just get it for $80 without any grading or anything. But I will say there are facsimiles of this comic book out. So it's, again, a reprint. It's not worth much at all. But people are selling it without detailing like, hey, this is a reprint. It's not worth nearly as much as the original. So first exposure to this character.
I think for me, it might be no. Funny enough, yeah. I'm sorry.
I don't apologize. It is what it is.
The failed movie that was supposed to include Magic Mike himself.
Man, I had full intention of watching the entire thing.
Yeah.
No, I did not. It did not happen. I quite literally scrubbed through it just for Gambit, and that was it.
Which one?
Oh, are you talking about like literally the Gambit, the failed Gambit film that never happened? That was your first exposure to Gambit?
Not even
Origins?
I don't remember it.
Oh wow.
I couldn't remember, but then I got things recommended to me, and I was like, Gambit in Origins. I was like, what, really? And then I was like,
oh my
shoot,
gosh,
yeah,
that's insane.
yeah.
Holy smokes.
Because
Wow.
obviously I watched that movie in theaters as long as I did, but obviously because it was just like, oh, this is Remy. But like the only thing I remember from that movie is or that stuck out was the elevator scene. Obviously, that's like probably one of the best parts of that movie.
Yeah.
And also, Wade Wilson being X'd up and balded up and everything.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
but yeah, even like that scene that had Remy in it.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I don't really recall.
Wow.
So Channing Tatum was technically my first exposure.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will take your apology because that is really sad. Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. So I mean, we're definitely going to talk about that soon. For me, I had him in cards.
Okay.
I have pretty much every trading card of Gambit there could possibly be up until 2000 something. But he was always in the cards. I didn't know him too well. And then, of course, X-Men the Animated Series came out. Full steam ahead.
Yeah.
And I was, again, at this point in time, I was not even 10 years old yet. I was like 9 maybe. Mm-hmm. And I was in it to win it. I was all about it. Like I joke, I think I said to AJ too, I don't know what we were talking about. And Gambit came up and I was like, yeah, it's pretty much my first love, I think. And he goes, mine too. Like, fair. But yeah, like I used to joke that when I was little, because I was really into Street Fighter. Yeah. So Ryu and Gambit were my two boyfriends. Yes. And I would always tell everybody, like as a little girl, I was like, Gambit's my boyfriend. Nice. And he was everything to me, right? So the show only enhanced it. Because he was so good on the show, which is why I love Chris Potter so much. Yes. Because he was just like such a transformative thing for me. But yeah, I guess that was more or less my first. No, it makes sense. Exposure. Yeah. Like I'm trying to think, do I have a show where I love somebody growing up? I know. Was Mary Jane your like girlfriend? No. Well, I'm trying to think even more childhood, not even movies. Like was there an anime? Because I watched like Saturday cartoons, but it just wasn't. Oh, interesting. Yeah. It wasn't. Because it stopped obviously because in the 90s it stopped. Yeah. So it was such a 90s thing. Well, like I can't even. I was gonna say I'm like during your era. I mean, it was maybe. Well, I watched a lot of WB Saturday morning cartoons. So the Animaniacs, Static Shock. Static Shock, Yu-Gi-Oh. Sure. Oh right, Yu-Gi-Oh. I know Pokemon, but not even in any of those shows. Misty where I was wasn't like yay. No, not really. I can't think of I can't think. Maybe it was movies. I maybe like who did I was oh. Exactly. I don't know. I mean, shoot, maybe. I don't know, extremely goofy movie, Roxanne. Everybody likes Roxanne. Everybody. This might be on the weirder side, but Nala from Lion King. But I'll be real. I mean, the voice actresses were fantastic. Fun fact. Yes. Me and the Lion King are 30 years old. Oh, because of the anniversary, right? Did you go, by the way? We turned, me and the Lion King are the same age. That was weird. I was like, wow. Oh my gosh. But wow. Yeah. Wow. So maybe I guess that. But that's so cool. But I didn't have that's that's Gambit. Yeah. Yeah. It had me a hard crush. It just never went away. Yeah. So like I said, I have so many trading cards. I was like, I'm not gonna pull them out. I have them all. There's literally 45 of them. So thankfully, of course, he's in our tiny little Marvel book, and so I will read his bio in here. Born into the New Orleans Thieves Guild, mutant Remy LeBEAU became a master thief before an encounter with the X-Men Storm led to membership alongside the legendary mutant heroes and marriage to teammate Rogue. Wow. So this is a very... Marriage? Oh yeah, they got married. Did I tell you? They got married. We're going to get to that. I am team Rogue and Gambit. Good boy. There's a huge discourse of meme war right now between Punker Ducky, who AJ posts a lot.
Yes.
They're very funny. She's so fun. She was actually at Comic-Con Revolution, but I didn't talk to her. But she posts hilarious memes, and she and Rognito, the account Rognito, are like just going back and forth. Oh, it's so insane. I get it. No hate. But if you're not Team Gambit, if you're not Team Romy, you're wrong. You're just wrong.
Makes sense.
Right? I agree. and so for your satisfaction, Geoff, Gambit is 6'2", and he is 178 pounds.
Whoa.
Lean. Very lean.
He's lean.
Super lean.
I would
super athletic.
I would kill to be 6'2".
Stupid but fun fact. Apparently, I guess somebody got a hold of the bio sheets for the show, and they've pulled everybody down a couple inches. So he's only 6 feet now, and Cyclops is 6'1".
Oh.
I don't know why. And then the girls are also shorter. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just realistic now, but 6'2", 178.
That is a
holler.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it. Remy LeBEAU. Middle name is after an uncle. I'm not going to talk more about the uncle, but that's where the middle name comes from. And so like many good stories, Remy arc begins nearly 20 issues before his official entrance. And so this arc began somewhat as early as Uncanny X-Men number 248, with the presumed death of a handful of characters, including Storm, who eventually reemerged in 265 as an adolescent, and she had her memories were completely wiped. So that's what gives with the cover, you see, at second glance, you're like, oh, she's a child in this picture. So if you see the cover of 266, Aurora looks smaller in stature, and then you realize, oh, she is a child version of herself. That's why she looks the way she does. It's not just she's covered or the artist. And so Storm herself, she's being pursued not only by the Shadow King, but another villain by the name of Eleanor Murch, a.k.a. the Nanny, alongside the Orphan Maker. And so these two are very strange. They're a bit robotic. Nanny herself is a robot of sorts. And her intention is to gather all of her children, and she keeps them safe and warm and within her. So she like abducts children with the idea that she's protecting them.
That sounds traumatic.
But she looks like a Humpty Dumpty robot.
Gross.
So it's not quite a MODOK.
MODOK, yeah.
But like a Humpty Dumpty. Like she's egg-shaped.
Like egg-shaped.
And she's like a robot. And she's just very comical. And so, yeah, she's in pursuit of these X-Men, trying to, or just mutants or anybody with special talents, taking them under her wing as a means of protection. But it's really abduction. And Orphan Maker is exactly that. Orphan Maker will get rid of anybody in their way. So he will kill parents, he will kill guardians just to get them for he and Nanny. It's very strange. And so while on her own as an adolescent, Storm takes up thieving because, of course, we haven't talked about Storm yet, but when we do, we'll get into a little bit of this as well. But when she was a child growing up in Cairo, Egypt, she was a thief. She was a street urchin, a riffraff, all that good stuff,
Okay, Aladdin.
I know. I was like writing it in my notes, and I was like, these are the lyrics to
Riffraff, street rat. I don't know that.
If only they knew. What is the words? I don't remember the words.
Let's not get too hasty. Really tasty. Oh, so good.
My bad. But yeah,
that's my movie, Jasmine.
That makes sense.
It's Jasmine.
It's the red suit, isn't it?
It's the blue.
Jafar.
No, it's the blue.
Oh, it's
blue's
the
my
blue
favorite
one.
color.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Jasmine was beautiful. I was like, I want to be Jasmine. Yeah.
Jasmine.
Oh, good call though. So yes, baby Storm was in Aladdin and throughout the streets of Cairo. And she had this innate ability to be a productive thief when it came to her, stealing from people. And so in this modern age, at the time when she's trying to stay away from her adversaries, she becomes like a modern day Robin Hood. So she starts stealing from bad people, rich people, reselling or giving the stuff back for reward.
Yeah.
And so, or just to give back to the community of people who are very needy. So as the Shadow King closes in on Storm, she goes to this mansion and she's seeking out these paintings that are worth hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of dollars, and she crosses paths with a thief casing the same joint that she intended to hit, and he introduces himself simply as Gambit.
And
he's got a
remember.
He's always, back in the day, we talked a bit about this, I think it was with Nick Fury, that so many characters used to walk around with cigarettes or cigars in their mouths.
Yes.
Even Captain Stacy constantly had a pipe in his mouth. And so this is before the Joe Quesada essentially banning smoking from comics. So every time you see Gambit in this comic, he's got a cigarette in his mouth or in his hands. And so he's just got this mysterious smoke casting up. And he's like, I'm Gambit. And so despite her pursuance, Gambit immediately then jumps into a protective mode for Ororo. So he's not there with ill intention at all. He's like, come on, girl, we gotta go. And so he'll grab her and then he tries to save her.
Yeah.
And so this is the first time we see him use his power. And it's so interesting because, he's obviously, in modern times, if you were to express what Gambit uses as his weapons, what would you say? Playing cards.
Yeah.
Back in the day, he would use spikes, so small like shurikens, almost.
Like ninja stars, almost.
Not ninja star, but like if it was like a blade that was just thin and.
Got it.
Yeah, like a literal spike. So he would charge spikes and throw them, and so very quickly here is the first official panel of the character. Again, smoking.
Yes.
And so again, gaunt, very tall, lanky. He's got a vibe to him, dark eyes. And so he would throw these spikes, and then they exploded. And so Ororo was like, oh, he's like me.
Yeah.
So because she's just realizing, oh, she has power. She's kind of an amnesiac at this time. So she doesn't know that she was Storm of the X-Men. And so as she's going along remembering things, she's also meeting this mysterious man who is like, oh, he is also a mutant. And so she trusts him almost immediately. And so this particular part of the arc takes place between two consecutive issues, Ororo finally regaining bits of her memory throughout the second part, which is Uncanny X-Men 267. And so as it goes about also, she's also aging up. So she's finally growing out of her adolescent, stage that Nanny and all of them put her through. And so now by the end of the story, the two are thick as thieves, no pun intended, but very appropriate. They defeat their adversaries and survive the battle, and then Ororo just simply says at the end of it, tell me, Gambit, have you ever heard of the band of mutant heroes called the X-Men? And so she enlists him to come join the team.
Wow.
Simple as that. And then he joins. That's it.
So it's Storm.
It's all Storm.
Bring him in.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so Remy LeBeaU, Gambit, portrayed by Taylor Kitsch in 2009's X-Men Origins, directed by Gavin Hood. And of course, another very special mention to AJ LoCascio, our Ragin Cajun, featured in X-97, as well as Chris Potter from the original animated series. So, X-Men Origins, it has a reputation of its own, and sadly, Gambit suffered in translation. So, you've seen the entire film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has it been a while?
Yeah.
Yes. There's times where I'm on Disney Plus and I'm like, just do it. Just to really refresh your memory.
Yeah.
As someone that I probably haven't watched it. Probably the last time I watched it, the reason why I don't remember that scene probably that much is because it's always just played on TNT or whatever. So I would just catch it wherever it's at, and then obviously just remember the Deadpool, the Wade elevator scene.
Yes.
So it's that's pretty much it. So
yeah, I remember watching it the first time and being like, going in with a low bar, because even at this point in time, even though it was 2009, I was still in a weirdly hopeful, optimistic phase of X-Men. I was like, cool, this means, because it was labeled X-Men Wolverine, Origins Wolverine.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, are they going to do different origin movies? I was like excited. I was like, oh, cool.
I think that was probably their intention.
Oh, 100%.
And then they saw how bad. They're like, wow.
And they're like, oh, we can't do this.
Sorry.
Yeah,
we're not gonna put $80 million anymore.
Yeah. And so I was still a bit optimistic, and I was so excited.
Yeah.
Because Gambit was finally coming into the fold after 10 years, almost 10 years of X-Men live action films. And so I went in really like inspired and being like, okay, cool. You know, Hugh Jackman is obviously so incredible. And then immediately Ryan Reynolds almost stole the show. Even as bad as they treated him.
They treated Wade.
Yeah. After, a bit.
Yeah. But
he was phenomenal for when he was normal faced Wade Wilson. But yeah, it was sad. It was unfortunately riddled with issues.
Of course.
From the get-go. Will.i.am being in it. Like, I liked him, didn't love him. He wasn't super good at acting at that time. Liev Schreiber was fantastic as Sabretooth. But again, the story, like, it just wasn't locking in as hard as it could have. And unfortunately, Taylor Kitsch, he looked the part. I still think he is daddy. He was very good looking then.
Fair.
He's still good looking now.
Uh-huh.
And he does, because people always ask, who would you cast in MCU Gambit? I'm like, I do not know. That man does not exist. He just doesn't. But Taylor Kitsch does have what I would anticipate to be what the general features of Gambit would look like in real life. And so it is kind of a shame that he was kind of wasted. And it wasn't exactly, the treatment for the character wasn't exactly top tier. So in Origins, Remy's story was tied to William Stryker, a younger William Stryker. He's a repeat offender in the Foxverse. He's played by, what's his name? Brian.
Yes.
Yes, he's played by him in X2. And so, so it's, again, they've regressed the character to a younger version. And this is, again, in Wolverine's past. And so the timing is off. The timeline is all weird. So it's like, I remember thinking back then, I was like, if this takes place in the past, that means Gambit is already like 25 and Rogue is like 10, maybe younger. And that just ruined it. I was like, oh, the timing is off.
That makes sense.
That ain't going to happen. But yeah, so the Stryker was essentially stealing DNA from various mutants, and Remy happened to be one of them. And he spent 2 years on the island among Stryker's captives, and he broke out and he found his way home to New Orleans. And so that's the whole premise of why Wolverine was seeking him out. It's because he needed to get to the island to get his revenge and find the other people.
Got it.
And his girlfriend that they killed or didn't kill and ended up killing. Silver Fox. So yeah, it was all over the place. But yeah, Gambit was only in it for
like that one scene, right?
Like he was in the main scene in New Orleans. He was in an airplane scene with Logan, which is the exact moment his accent goes away. No accent whatsoever. It's kind of strange. And then he's at the very, very end after the whole thing blows up and he's like, we got to get out of here. And he tries to get Logan to come and he's like, no, I can't. I got to find my own way off. And he's like, good luck. And then he just leaves it there.
Yeah, I need to.
Yeah,
damn. Okay.
I know, right? It's like, oh.
I'm gonna. If I can get through Dark Phoenix, I can get through X-Men Origins.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, no, I maybe not. I feel Origins is.
I still haven't done the most recent Fantastic Four.
In order, you watch Fantastic Four, Origins, and then Dark Phoenix, and you'll feel better at the end. Because at least Dark Phoenix is well done. You know what I mean? Like they did it well.
Sure.
It's just that it was a lot of like, why is any of this happening? And
sure,
Michael Fassbender is incredible, but
of course,
it's just
yeah. So I still haven't. Nope.
Yeah. So I mean, we don't even have to talk about the encounter with Logan or other. Like it was well done for what it was, but it could have been so much better, and it's sad because it had potential.
Yeah, I mean, 2009, there's only one Marvel movie out,
right?
So it's like
exactly.
Yeah,
like this is right after Iron Man. I mean, I'm sure the audiences were just ravaging against it because Iron Man was so top tier.
Yeah,
and then
they're
Fox
probably
comes
like,
out.
"Yo, Fox!" Like the audience is probably like, "Fox."
Yeah.
So what, if Marvel's doing this with a C-list character at the time,
Yep.
like why do your Wolverine movies suck?
Right. Which I think plays a lot into why it didn't succeed.
And I
Because
think that's why they made First Class.
yeah, I agree. And they also cut the Origins series short. Like
Yeah.
they never even had to call it X-Men Origins. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
they
it
could have just called it Wolverine.
Could have
and-
just been Wolverine.
No, but then they were like, oh, actually, just kidding, and then released Wolverine 2 years later.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh my goodness. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about Remy more later on, but one pop quiz. I wanted to take it easy on you. I should have had reverse. I should have had you ask me questions.
I don't think there could be a question I could ever think of that would stump you.
I don't know, man. Maybe. Okay, so this is ridiculous as it may seem. So, from the following, what is Gambit's chaotic cereal combo of choice? Is it A, Frosted Flakes and Raisin Bran? B, Cheerios and blueberries? Not so chaotic, I guess.
That's not
C, Cocoa Krispies and granola?
bad. Okay.
Or D, Fruit Loops and Kicks?
Kicks?
Kicks are grub. What are you talking about? Kicks.
I don't like kicks.
Oh, Kicks are good.
We can agree to disagree.
We gotta do like a timeline or a chart of our favorite cereals. Back to
I
back.
can go for days on that.
Corn Pops.
Those ones, yeah, those are good. Kicks and Apple Jacks,
Fruit Loops and Kicks. Apple Jacks are pretty fire too.
That's what I'm saying. Cookie Crisp are also up there for me.
Yeah.
And then what was the first three again?
So Frosted Flakes and Raisin Bran.
Raisin Bran,
Cheerios and blueberries. Cocoa Krispies and granola.
Okay.
Or Fruit Loops and Kicks.
I feel like Gambit, because he's Cajun, he likes flavor.
Okay.
Like he's like
great
boom
start.
pop, boom pop, boom pop.
Yeah.
So immediately, no on Kicks for
Okay.
me.
Because they're tasteless.
Yes, they are.
That's more of a Cyclops cereal.
Yeah, that guy's a freaking prude. That's what.
Vanilla.
He's vanilla as hell
Vanilla.
and a horrible father. Anyways,
I love Scott Summers. I love him.
Gene. No, I'm not gonna do that for another episode.
Scott.
No. Nathan.
Gene. Like, here we go again.
Stop trying to be my mom. The daddy act is 20 years too late.
Oh my god.
I don't. The blueberries and Cheerios.
Uh-huh.
That is a very, very good combo. A refreshing combo, I might add.
Yeah.
But
Pretty healthy.
I don't think it's.
You don't buy that.
I don't think it's a REMY LeBEAU type cereal.
Okay.
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 And then we got Raisin Bran and
Frosted Flakes.
Frosted Flakes. See, that's throwing me off because Raisin Bran is dog. Like I hate it.
Really?
But like the fact that you're adding the Frosted Flakes in it, all that sugar in it,
Yeah.
him being like, he's like yeah, Frosted Flakes.
Cooking with the flavor.
So I'm between that and then the
Cocoa Krispies and granola.
Cocoa Krispies and granola. I feel like he's a chocolate man. I like that's where I'm like leaning toward. You don't have a voice like that, and you don't like a little chocolate in your life.
For the first time, I wish everyone could see my face.
Like I want to, cause like maybe it's cause like I love Krispies too, Cocoa Krispies.
Cocoa Krispies. Okay.
So I'll go C. I could be really wrong.
See, so you're saying Cocoa Krispies and granola is Gambit's chaotic cereal
I think so.
combo of choice.
I think so.
Well, Mr. Geoffrey, with that assumption, you would be correct.
Oh yeah!
Woo! So
I've watched 10 episodes of this man. I already know him so well.
Hey, so this actually stems from, I believe it's X-Men number 31. 31? 31 or 32, series 2. And he comes in, he's wearing his usual tank top and swimming trunks, whatever he's wearing.
Yeah.
And he comes into Rogue's room and he's smoking in the doorway, and he's like, shit. And he says, he's like, he says something about, oh, you didn't come down for my special treat. And then he says, I mean, today was an especially risky recipe. Got it from an old friend. Granola and Cocoa Krispies mixed together.
See?
And then he says, he actually talks about it. It's so weird. The fact that I retain this of all things. And he says, it turns into a real appetizing shade of muddy brown, like a healthy chocolate milkshake, eh, Cher? And then she surprisingly says, like, did you say me in the chocolatey goop there at the bottom? So she like eats his like, she eats his leftover cereal milk. This woman. Faces are being made. That's all I gotta say.
It's like Barry Keoghan in Saltburn.
I didn't want to say it, but it is 100% the bathwater. It is 100% the bathwater. Yeah, she's like, chocolatey Gambit. Anyway, we're chaotic right now.
Got it. Raisin Bran is too vanilla.
Too vanilla
for a
Remy
Cajun
LeBeAU.
man.
Yeah, that's right. So we're going to move on to aesthetics. So I have two beautiful pictures here. One that is a collage of essentially every Gambit suit he has ever had, right down to the basketball one in the very back top right. This is a beautiful collage by Russell Dodderman, once again, the King of Kings. And so he has done a number of these collage covers, and Gambit happens to be one of them. I love how he draws Gambit. Again, Russell is a Hellfire Gala drawn king, so he's drawn all these X-Men in their most beautiful ways imaginable. And then of course on the right you see Taylor Kitsch in the film as one of his like official stills. And so I wrote in my notes here, my dude has gone through tons and tons of costumes, and he's been around for pretty much almost as everybody else who's been around for 60 years. They all get these insane costume changes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's only been around for so many, but still he's gone through like literally 30 iterations of outfits. But you can see he's always either in fuchsia, purple, blue, and then sometimes he's got the blue and gold. It's great. I mean, in hindsight, this Jim Lee 1992 outfit is kind of strange if you think about it. And if you noticed on the first issue cover, he pretty much is wearing a thong on top of his pants. Very strange. Yeah. But they've made it, they've remixed it a little bit. I think the one right above the 92 one that's purple and black is kind of his most recent one. So they've tried to make it more subtle, keep it a little more grounded, which is great. Meanwhile, the X-Men Origins costume designer Louise Mingenbach was responsible for also dressing the folks in X-Men, X2, and Days of Future Past. So she had her hand in at least 4 X-Men movies, including Gambit's outfit in Origins. So they definitely tried to keep the vibe going, the more grounded version of a gambler. Violet silk shirt, weighty trench coat. The hat was weird. I'm glad that he didn't have it on too long.
That does not look right, for being completely honest.
No, it's weird. He literally is only wearing it for the first 10, 20 seconds that he's in the movie.
And takes it off.
And he just takes it off, yeah. But yeah, they kept him. He's had that kind of look in the comics before. I didn't hate it too much, but it certainly wasn't the pink and purple. But from there, yeah, we'll roll into powers and paraphernalia. So, oh man, I went into this because it's so easy to say he charges things with kinetic energy, but it's so much more than that. And so there's actually a lot of science built into this. But in a nutshell, he does possess the power of molecular acceleration. So in so many words, Remy can tap into the potential energy within an object, converting it into kinetic energy, to which the item is then charged and it goes kaboom. There's this amazing page. I can't remember which comic it's from, but he literally has nothing. He has nothing on him. He's just wearing his clothes and he's like, oh, I need something. And then he finds a can of beans. And he's like, is gonna have to do. And he charges the can of beans and he throws it at this huge aircraft.
Yeah.
But you have to think, he's not just charged a can of beans. He's charged the can and every single beam. So it explodes like a nail bomb and takes down the entire thing. And you just see the reflection of the explosion in his face, and he goes, man, I gotta start carrying around some beans. It's so good. And so the smaller the object, the less time it takes to charge. Larger objects, as we've seen in X-Men 97, take much longer, but he can do it. And so early on, like in the Uncanny X-Men 266, for instance, his powers were drawn in such a way, like literally drawn, that it suggested he was not only charging the item physically, but also by looking at it. So this is something that they've kind of tapped into, that, oh, he just looks at something and he can charge it. True, but not true. He's powerful, but there are different reasons why this isn't consecutively understood when it comes to him, or, you know, not carried over across the entire lore that is Gambit. The skill, however, generally does not work with living matters such as birds, insects, animals, trees, or human beings, or organic molecules like hydrocarbons, sugars, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. And so this actually debunks his ability to charge Wolverine's adamantium, like we saw in the first episode of X-Men 97, which was like one of the biggest amazing moments that they had, that he jumped on his back and he started charging the adamantium. Technically, he's not supposed to be able to do that. But, you know, we won't talk about that. Beyond the kinetic charging, Gambit also has dissolution, disruption. And so these are things that he can do. He can essentially challenge the probability of something, which is interesting. He also has enhanced conditioning, so that includes accelerating regeneration, which is innate, so he can regenerate himself, but it's not super duper fast. It's faster than the average human, just not superhuman. He has speed augmentation as well, so he moves faster than a normal human being. He has static interference. He can also create or enhance static charge on anything. Vibration emission, and the energy is released on impact. So this is something that's similar to, let's say, Black Panther's suit. You know how it absorbs kinetic energy and then it like expulses it? Yeah. It's very similar to that. So he can kind of do that, where he can emit this vibration that the energy is then created from. And then he has acceleration bestowal, so he can kind of give it to any item that he throws, which is why the cards work the way they do. Delayed charge of the cards, so he can set things up like bombs. Mutant energy control, which means he can potentially tap into other mutants' energy.
My gosh.
And affect or amalgamate different energies into one.
My gosh.
Yeah. And hypnotic charm. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. This was introduced very early on in the Uncanny X-Men issues, because at one point he's trying to convince, it's essentially a Jedi mind trick. He's trying to convince them, you don't want to do this. You just want to let us go. Yeah. And then the people are like, no, don't look at me. I know what you're doing. And, you know, it doesn't work. So he is kind of like a vampire in a weird way, all things considered. But on top of all that, he's also multilingual in English, French, and some Japanese, a master marksman, martial artist, stick fighter, and thief with gifted intellect. And so his strategy compared to the average mutant or human is actually much more advanced. His strategy skills have been compared to Wolverine and Beast. So he's on their level, which makes him really formidable. And so on the movie side of things, or live action at least, is pretty simple in comparison. He charges things, they go boom. He's also a pretty skilled fighter. He used the walking stick for bow staff, which is fine, I guess. I mean, whatever. It's not quite a bow staff, but they tried to hide it in an Easter egg, you know.
He got killed with a staff.
And he could... God! Chaos! Yeah, so the live action again version is not nearly quite as cool as the animated or comic book, but it is what it is. So family and friends and affiliations. So the first one on this list, Jean-Luc LeBeaU. I didn't want to go too deep into the lore of the guilds, but I'm gonna mention them here. So Jean-Luc is actually Remy's adoptive father. So when Remy was a baby, imagine Gambit but as a baby. And so
did he just come out the womb? Mon ami.
I know, right? Mon ami. Yeah, exactly. AJ did that voice at that Comic-Con Revolution. Ross Marquand was like, because AJ does the voice for Gizmo.
Yes.
And so Ross Marquand put him on the spot. He's like, so Gizmo as Gambit, what would that sound like? And AJ was like, oh, Mama Sherry. He's like, I'm a some big yes. And so basically that's Baby Gambit. And so when Remy was a baby, imagine a baby, but with black sclera and red irises. Like he looks like a demon baby. Probably looks like Rosemary's Baby, even though they never showed the baby. So his parents abandoned him.
Wow.
And then baby Remy was then kidnapped from the hospital that harbored him by members of the Thieves Guild. So Jean-Luc is the head and the what do you call it? The patriarch of the Thieves Guild. So
Got it.
in Louisiana, there are two guilds, thieves and assassins.
Okay.
He's on the thieves side. The thieves side.
Thieves side.
And so the thieves themselves believed that this baby was going to unify the guilds.
Both guilds?
Yes. And so they're like, oh, he's the blessed child. So they brought him to Jean-Luc, and Jean-Luc then adopts the baby as his own, and then he raises him as a proper thief and the prince of the thieves. And so that's Remy LeBEAU. And so there's no live action counterpart. Jean-Luc is around. He comes and goes as he pleases. He's no longer the king of thieves. That is now Gambit. Gambit is now the king of thieves due to a number of things in the comics, but we won't go there. But yeah, so he's got a papa, but that's
I
about
feel
it.
like we're going to see a live action MCU Gambit sooner than we think.
Oof. I don't know if I'm ready. We'll see.
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
I just feel like this trend of X-Men.
They're going to go hot on it, right?
Yeah, like after like X-Men 97 literally has 100%.
Yeah.
So you're like, once you realize like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
We can do these characters.
Yep.
Let's give the people an X-Men. And then you got the Fantastic Four coming up. and I think when obviously there's also like rumors of like they're hiring writers to write an X-Men MCU movie.
Yeah.
So if they do well with this Fantastic Four movie and then the Secret Wars movie, I know, but it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Then it's like, okay, if we can like tackle these, like, because MCU knows, like they know they can't mess X-Men up.
No, not again.
Yeah.
No.
Like Feige knows, like, okay, look, there's a reason we bought Fox.
Exactly.
Like
20 years with the movies later.
We got to make sure like this is like right. Yeah. So
yeah,
I say before 2030, we might see Gambit.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
I'm technically like 5.5 years away.
Well, yeah, like I was saying, I used to live by the idea that I was like, wow, I'm never going to see the X-Men done proper in live action as long as I live. But the moment that they bought Fox, I was like, oh my God, I might actually see it.
Yeah.
And here comes Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm like, oh my God, yellow spandex.
I mean, well, one, there might be a Gambit. Sorry, there might be a
There
Gambit
is going to be a
there.
Gambit. I would love if there were two Gambits. Man, Taylor Kitsch deserves some redemption, but it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. So, speaking of Deadpool Wolverine, James Logan Howlett, a.k.a. Wolverine. So, early on, Remy was tasked with retrieving the diary of Nathaniel Essex from the Weapon X facility. And so, once he did this, he succeeded in retrieving this diary. He gets it. He realizes what's inside of it. And because Remy is not necessarily a bad guy, he's a good guy that does bad things. He burns the diary. He's like, this isn't good for the world. I can't consciously let this happen. And then and so even though they didn't know it at the time, this would essentially be the earliest encounter that the two would have, even though it wasn't directly with one another. Because I think this is around the same time that Weapon X goes berserk or something happens in the facility. And so they're there at the same time, but they don't know each other at all. But despite dragging Remy through the mud, and rightfully so over the years, these two forge a pretty authentic relationship as expected while at Xavier's Institute. And of all the people that Remy could have bonded with, it was pretty amazing that it would be Logan. And so these two even had a solo title called Wolverine Gambit Victims, released in 1995. And it's noted as being a quote unquote mystery involving what appears to be a modern day Jack the Ripper. It's pretty good. I do like, I remember not loving it when I first got it and when it first came out, but I came to love it in time. And so nevertheless, Logan has never hesitated to call Remy on his Maybe that's why the two make a great pair. Like they're very real with one another. They understand each other's backgrounds, and it is what it is. They're both adult enough to own up to their issues. And so, of course, in the films portrayed by Hugh Jackman in every single goddamn X-Men related film since
that's true.
2000. So he will be portraying Wolverine for 24 years this year. So yeah, again, these two had a decent amount of time on screen together. Essentially, anytime Remy was on screen, Wolverine was with him. So again, in New Orleans, in the plane, and at the end. And again, there was an exceptional amount of growth for them. Gambit was very much kind of the butt of the joke and just kind of like almost a prop for Wolverine to progress throughout the film. But he did help. And, all things said, he did help a lot. But yeah, he was kind of a clown in a weird way, especially when it came to the second half of it. But yeah, definitely nothing compared to their connection in the comic books. And so related, but not related, there's also Laura Kinney, a.k.a. X-23/Wolverine. So similarly to Logan, Remy connected with Laura, who is obviously created from Logan's DNA that makes her his clone and or daughter, depending on who you ask.
Damn.
And so these two, in Laura had her own solo issues, of course. And so in her title, Gambit was very prominent in that he was kind of looking over her because he promised Logan that he would take care of her.
Yeah.
And so he kind of shadows her. He plays essentially a father figure to Laura in the comics. And of course, in live action, she is portrayed by Daphne Keane, in 2017's Logan. So there's only 7 years ago, but she looks like she went from a baby to a woman almost like in no time flat, which is so incredible to me. And yeah, she's only 19, which is also mind-blowing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she's 19 years old. So, of course, no on-screen crossover because she's only been in Logan. But, I mean, speaking of cameos, holy smokes, if she popped up in Deadpool and Wolverine, I would lose my mind.
There's going to be, I think there's going to be a lot of losing minds.
Love Laura Kinney. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Very underrated. Like, I love her. But yeah. Oh, that'd be so great. And so on the piggyback of Laura, we mentioned her in the beginning of the show, Aurora Monroe, Storm. So yeah, as we discussed up top, they both have been in cahoots since his entry into the comics, and it has not changed ever since. And so the only thing she does not love about him is that he calls her Stormy.
Stormy?
He's constantly called her
I get
Stormy. And literally every time he's like, all right, Stormy. And she goes, do not call me that, Gambit. Every time.
Stormy mon ami.
Stormy. And so they're so close that Storm was essentially his best woman when he got married to Rogue. So she stood up there at the altar with him.
Wow.
That's how close they are.
Wow.
They're incredibly close. And again, like their connection can't even be drilled down to a bullet point. Like it's so many years worth of lore that they're just best friends in a lot of ways. So Storm and Wolverine are so close with him. And so, of course, in live action, portrayed by Halle Berry and Alexandra Shipp in the X-verse. So yeah, again, no on-screen crossover whatsoever, though it is said, I did find this, during my homework, is that a stunt double apparently portrayed Gambit in X2, but it never panned out, and they ultimately scrapped the footage. So it exists somewhere. He was shown, I guess, during a Cerebro scene. Of course.
Got it.
He had cards. Ooh, it's Gambit.
Anyone that has cards is Gambit.
Exactly. Ooh, a mutant man turns around and he's got a deck of cards in his hands. It must be Gambit. They ultimately killed it, and so it's never seen the light of day. But that would have been some sort of crossover. But that's about it for Stormy and Remy. Another name that I had to mention here, Lorna Dane Polaris. So these two shared space primarily during their times in the all-new X Factor team. And so this was a team led by Lorna under the corporation called Serval Industries. So this is, again, a team where it was an offset after, post X-Men, he kind of got hired in to do something else. This is another instance of Logan telling him to get his shit together. And he's like, you gotta go and do something with your life. You can't just be sitting around talking very, very fatherly like. And so Remy, again, takes accountability for being a mature human being who can be on a team that is remotely functional. And of course, Lorna Dane is Magneto's daughter. So this puts another spin of just calamity all over.
Jeez.
And who is also on the team is Pietro.
Wow.
So he's dealing with 2 of the 3 Maximum children in his personal space. It's crazy. The storyline is great. I didn't put it on our suggested reading, but it's an absolute knockout of the park. I loved it. But yeah, the two, they develop an incredible friendship and camaraderie over that entire series. Whereas, of course, in live action, there's no on-screen crossover because she's only been in one thing, and she was portrayed by Emma Dumont in 2017's The Gifted series. That's a character that I think they should bring in. I get why they haven't, because it gets weird and convoluted because of Magneto and Wanda, for that matter. They got to do it eventually. Even if it's not her, they got to do it.
Yeah.
But we'll see. And then, of course, oh my God. This is the one that I was like, this is so hard to write out. The X-Men. I lump them in all together.
I think you should.
Huge. Yeah, this is huge.
I think you should.
Like, those are the standout ones, but the X-Men as a whole. So I literally put in my notes, in bold, in italics, look. So the X-Men, they dragged him through the mud, and with a wealth of reason, which I wanted to touch here regarding a brief but very meaningful arc titled The Trial of Gambit. Yeah. So this all began in 1986. This is 4 years before he even came in. There's a famous arc called The Mutant Massacre. And so no one was safe. This is this is like right up your alley. Everyone's getting killed. It's literally a mutant massacre. Jeff's nodding his head.
Hell yeah, baby.
Loves death.
It doesn't matter. In the comics, people always come back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's also true, especially X-Men. Oh my goodness. It's like what Rogue said in the Extinction Part 2 or 3. She's like, what, Jean's gonna die? Oh, we've seen that before. Like, she straight up was like, whatever, we've seen Jean die and come back many times. Yeah, same thing. So in the Mutant Massacre, no one was safe. And so a number of X-Men were fatally wounded or caught in the crosshairs or straight up died. And so this same event is the event that so Angel, when he first was when he's first introduced, he is very much an angel, right? Yeah. This is the event that ensures that he not only gets pinned to the X, the thing like Magneto was in on the show. Yeah. Angel gets pinned to one of those things, but it's his wings. Eesh. And it got so bad that his wings caught gangrene and they had to amputate his wings. No. And so this is all under Apocalypse. Of course. And then Apocalypse then transforms him into Archangel and the Horseman Death. So what transpired was a formulated group of bad mutants called the Marauders, quite literally a massacre group. They go in and they massacre this group of mutants called the Morlocks. And so we've seen a little bit of the Morlocks. It was like the woman with the patch over her eye, Callisto, and the kid that died that Magneto was trying to protect, Leech. Yes. He's a Morlock. So those were all Morlocks. They were the ones in the tunnels. And so, again, this group called the Marauders go and quite literally massacre the Morlocks. And so this is an entirely traumatizing moment in mutant history. It's synonymous with parts of real life history, if you will, where they dispose of a large group of people for no real reason. And the Morlocks themselves are being killed just because they're unfit. So they consider them the Z-listers of mutant kind. And so that's why they were pursued to be offed. And so it's later discovered that not only did Mr. Sinister enable this horrific act as means of cleansing the mutant gene pool, but that Gambit himself had orchestrated the gathering of the Marauders. And then he led them to the sewers where the massacre then took place.
Jeez.
And so it's so messed up because this is probably the worst thing he's ever done.
Eesh.
And so unfortunately, Gambit did do it for money, but he wasn't aware that what was going to happen. So he got the group together. He's like, great, I'll get this group together, whatever. I'll take them down, whatever. I know where to go. And then the minute that he does that, he realizes, oh, God, what have I done?
Yeah.
And so he was even wounded during the chaos. And the only thing that he could do was that he saw a young Morlock child that was about to be killed. He got in its way. He grabbed the child and he ran. So he escaped with this one child. And that child ended up being a young child by the name of Marrow, who takes a pretty big part in later X-Men lore, like in the late 90s. She's an up-and-coming. She's interesting. She's in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Okay. She can quite literally pull, like there are bones jutting out of her body.
My gosh.
She pulls them out and she can use them as weapons. It's really gross, but so her earliest memory is a mutant saving her life. And it's Gambit. And so this all undoubtedly justifies the caution that the X-Men always had with them. They were always like, can we trust you? And they never knew why. This is why. So when they find out, it all comes to light on Antarctica. And so I don't know if during X-Men 97, you saw that on Twitter, people talking about Antarctica.
Okay. Maybe some sprinkles.
It's a big deal.
Oh, okay.
And so this is where the trial takes place, but we will talk about that shortly. So again, in live action, I mean, you can't even have favorite moments. He's only been on screen with Logan, but anything.
And he might be on screen with Logan again.
And Deadpool and Wade. But yeah, any particular standout moments in the 5 episodes that he was in on X-Men 97, or even you haven't gone back to watch animated series entirely?
Not the entire thing.
Yeah.
I think the one moment that stood out for me, besides him dying,
so mean,
stabbed in the side.
Don't make me relive it.
Mon ami.
The name's Gambit.
Was that conversation between, I think I mentioned this in the Rogue episode also, that conversation before the attack on Genosha that Rogue had with Gambit, where Rogue was like, I don't feel for you.
Yeah.
And he took it like a champ.
Yeah.
He was like, you're not gonna want, if you don't want me or whatever, I'm still always gonna like love you. And I was like, damn, bro. Because one, I felt that. Right. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
And then then that just like culminates into like the ending of that episode, which still gets me to this day.
Sure.
And it's just sad also. It's like Rogue chose Gambit and Gambit will never know.
Right. Yeah.
That sucks.
That's so sad. And I think that, again, like on top of Ms. Lenore's like grieving in performance, like she really, it brought it all home that it was like, okay, they kind of paint him as a certain type of character. Yeah. But then you realize, oh, damn, he actually has like a very genuine sensibility to him. And the fact that he didn't pitch a fit and that he was very cordial about it, accepted it and said, all right, if that is what you wish, we will just be friends. Yeah. And then he kissed her hand and then he walked out. And it's like, dang, I remember like when that first dropped, people on social were like, see, this is how the men should act. They shouldn't go crazy, right? Like it was like a perfect display of what to do in lieu of toxic masculinity. Yeah. And I fully agree with that. That's why, again, I love this character. And so
he's mature.
He's very mature. And so similarly, I wanted to bring up this particular panel. And so there's this part of X-Men in the comics where she is very much with Magneto, right? She is with Magneto for a lot of her time. And then at one point, she almost starts to date Johnny Storm, of all people.
Jeez.
And so she's caught in it. And so she's trying to make amends with him. despite having been with Magneto for so long. And so he says to her, this is so insane. I read this today and I was like, damn! I can't remember which comic this is from. I'm so sorry. But imagine, just panels of Rogue and Gambit. They're talking.
Yeah.
And he says to her, very, very similarly to the episode, he says, when it comes to love, reasons for and reasons against should fall away. You should just know. There's no doubt for me. No ambiguity. I loved many women, but none was like you. And she's like, Remy, I'd never. And he goes, please let me finish. And this is one of my favorite panels of this character. He says, I'm your home and your harbor, your endpoint, not a station along the way, not a gamble or an experiment. You'll come to me when you know that, but don't come to me before, which means for now, don't come to me at all.
Wow.
And he just lays it down. He's like, no, we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
It's so good. I was like, man, boom, right there. And this is a character that people have painted as like, oh, he's a womanizer. He doesn't believe in love. He doesn't know what love is.
Yeah.
But then he gives her that.
Yeah.
Woo! Remy LeBeaU.
Yeah.
And so speaking of that, we're going to dive into love interest now.
Wow.
And so by all means, this man has a list a mile long. I did not put everybody I could have on here, but we're just going to focus on the big two, of course, which are, of course, Belladonna Baudru LeBeaU. And so this woman, the infamous ex-wife. And so Belladonna and Remy were very, or at least somewhat, very Romeo and Juliet scenario.
Okay.
So the two met as children, quickly became friends, and they did not know that they were from the rival guilds of Nolans. And so Remy, again, was a member of the Thieves Guild, and Belladonna was a member of the Assassins Guild. So she's the great-granddaughter or the granddaughter of the king of the assassins. So by lineage, they're both on opposing sides. And so as the two grow up, they become, of course, each other's first loves. The fathers on each side then realize, okay, we're going to have an arranged marriage. And so the prophecy of Remy unifying the guilds is officially happening. They're great, we can have peace now.
Yeah.
We're going to have them get married. And so for whatever reason that we will not get into, but I'm sure we can surmise in some way, Belladonna's brother, Julian, becomes enraged with jealousy. He challenges Remy to a duel by death.
Sure.
He loses. And Remy is then outcast and exiled from Nolans as a result. And so to double down, he's like, actually, now that I'm free, I'm going to go do this by myself. And he leaves Belladonna behind, which only makes her angry.
Wow.
So she's lost her brother. She's lost her husband, and her husband doesn't want her to come with him. So she is like just building up with scorn. And so much, much later. And so in between, after that jump, imagine him running into Storm. Then he goes to the X-Men. So he's gone. He's like out of it. So she's left at home to tend to the Assassin's Guild. But later on, there's this huge story where there's a fallout on the astral plane. And Belladonna, who now at that point had powers, she had like some psychic powers of some sort. Yeah. She goes comatose. And this is the part of the story where Rogue then later absorbs part of Belladonna's memories. And so, again, needless to say, when she returned to consciousness, she was not happy. And she still hates them both. So she's trying to kill them many times. Yeah, that's just what's going to happen. And so Belladonna Baudru, no live action counterpart. However, we mentioned this in the Rogue episode. She was slated to be portrayed by Lea Seydoux in Channing Tatum's thankfully canceled.
I like her though.
Oh, she's great. I think she's a fantastic actress. But, yeah. And she would have been killer as Belladonna. Oh my goodness. She would have been great. But
not Channing as Gambit?
No. I was wearing my Gambit jacket and my Gambit shoes at Comic-Con Revolution. And I was walking in the artist alley and this guy goes, is that people have never seen that jacket before. I got so many compliments on it. On the Kith jacket.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And he goes, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. And he goes, do you think he's going to be in Deadpool and Wolverine? And I'm just like, And he meant Channing Tatum. And I was like, yeah, probably.
I'm going to get you a Gambit shirt, and it's going to be Channing Tatum's face.
This is the first time you'll see me burn something on social media. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it.
Then I'll buy you 2.
I don't buy it. I'll wear it only once because it's Gambit. But yeah, I can't. We're going to talk about this later. First, let me finish this. So Remy LeBEAU. So again, we've spoken at length about Rogue in episode 76 of the show. So rewind on back and go listen to that. But even then, we barely scratched the surface. And thanks again to Ms. Lenore Zan, who did the introduction for the episode. Woo! So, we'll continue to talk about Rogue throughout this episode, so I don't really feel the need to embellish more on her specifically, aside the fact that he has been into her since he first saw her. And so it wasn't until, the 1991-ish era of Jim Lee's, Series 2 X-Men, where they were divided into teams, and they do mention this in the animated series. Like, this is the first time they've actually acknowledged it in the cartoon. I don't think they did that in the original series because I don't think it was, it was established, but Cyclops says, okay, Wolverine, you're going to go with Blue, and, Rogue, whatever he said. And so they've divided into 2 groups, and of course, Rogue and Gambit are on the same team. So it is basically giving them the opportunity every which way to actually connect and bond over the years. And so something that I didn't actually touch on in our Rogue episode, no pun intended, was how these 2 got to the point of being able to touch. And so Rogue wore this, which is so funny because it's the answer in X-Men 97. Well, why doesn't she just wear the power dampener? And so she does in the comics. It's as simple as her putting on the necklace and she's like, I can touch you now. Yeah. And so she suppressed her powers and they got, again, she learned how to control her power eventually, thanks to Professor X. He helped her realize that taking on her past lives and actually confronting herself enabled her to control her power. Yeah. She didn't have to be afraid. She was so afraid, she made it worse. It's anxiety. Yeah. Realized.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like, okay, she manifested it for herself. So when she learned that, once she, kind of grasped the idea that I can control it, she did. And then they got married in X-Men Gold number 18, released in 2018. Subsequently, this is when she learns how to control her powers, this whole era, and then it jumps right into Mr. and Mrs. X, released later that year. So that's another short series with just the 2 of them. And oh my goodness, they have like several pages of a honeymoon. My God. It's just
7 pages?
Like it's just pages after pages of them.
That's crazy.
She at one point just goes, Remy, we haven't even left the room yet. It's like, ooh, wow. Woo, spicy. Cajun spice. So, of course, Marie D'Ancanto in the live action version. Rogue, portrayed by Anna Paquin in the Foxverse. And that's no live action crossover. Here we go again. I noticed that people who are just now coming into the fandom are like, oh my God, we were robbed. It's like, well, yeah, they were both around, but Fox fumbled that one too. So
hopefully we get
what you gonna do?
Redemption.
I know. I had a thought actually last night, and I was looking. Somebody popped up on my Instagram that I followed. I forgot I followed, but I do like her. And I was like, Catherine Langford, who was Morgan Stark. Yeah. Grown up Morgan Stark.
Yeah, yeah.
She looks different now. She's matured even more. I was like, she looks like Rogue. She could be Rogue. I think she could be Rogue for sure. She's low-key enough. Hella acting chops. I was like,
you never know.
But I don't know if she'll want to do it.
Yeah, true.
That's the thing. But, we'll see. We'll find out. Like you said, we'll probably find out sooner than later. So for notable adversaries, again, this list could be so long. And so I've reduced it to a very short few.
Number it to about 10. I'm just kidding.
I know, right? I probably could have, but I kept it even shorter than that. So Raven, Darkhold, Mystique, Yes, she's an adversary. Mystique is, again, up until very recently, is basically everybody's enemy.
I was
going
to say, I feel like she's just, yeah.
She's been around the block a couple of times. She's been around to make long enough to make a lot of enemies. But Raven did not love her daughter's choice in men. And so she decidedly at one point attempted to persuade Remy. So she broke into the X-Men mansion. She posed as I think the character was Fox or Rox, one of those. And then Remy saw through it and was like, "You're Mystique, what are you doing here?" She then shapeshifts into Rogue.
My gosh.
And propositions him and says, "Wouldn't you like to have a relationship with Rogue, but you can actually touch her?"
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's kind of icky. But again, she is exposed. People realize she's in the mansion. She's doing these horrific things or trying to get someone such as Gambit to do horrific things with her.
Yeah.
And she leaves. And Gambit swears that he never slept with her. I don't believe him. I think he slept with her.
believe you.
I don't believe him. Unfortunately, I don't think he did. I think he did, and I don't think he wanted anybody to know. But yeah, so she's kind of been around the town. She tries to kill him. She and Destiny. Yeah, she and Destiny both are like, before they got married, were like, "You're a clown," and he's like, "I'm proud of it." Yeah, he has
funny.
Yeah, he's learned to live with it, and they've learned to live with him. But yeah, they had a pretty rocky start. But sidebar, at one point in their history, Mystique gifted Remy 3 kittens, which he adopted as his sons, and they're named Figaro, Oliver, and Lucifer, because Remy loves Disney movies.
Ah.
Yeah, so he named him after. Yeah, so he has a trio of cats, and so Rogue and Gambit have cats instead of children, which is very, very modern of them. But yeah, Raven Darkholme in the live-action films, portrayed by Rebecca Romijn and Jennifer Lawrence. No live-action crossover. Shock, shock, shock. Pretty much all of these, he has no live-action crossover. Next on the list, Nathaniel Essex, Mr. Sinister. So this
guy freaks me out.
I hope they really bring him in, man.
This guy freaks me out.
Why does he freak you out?
Oh, it's like a vampire.
Yeah, in the cartoon.
In the cartoon,
right?
it does. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And so I was going to mention it up at the top of the show, but now's a good time to mention is that like Bryan Cranston apparently recently met with Marvel about being in a project, and if you've followed anything that Bryan Cranston has said about joining the MCU. They asked him, they're like, if you could play anybody, who would it be? And he was like, "Oh, Mr. Sinister." I was like, "Oh."
Interesting.
Yeah. He wants to play somebody that's never been on screen before.
Yeah.
And it's Bryan Cranston. Like, if you know anything about his acting.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so Nathaniel Essex, I would love to be able to talk about him one day. We would only be able to compare him to the cartoon version,
97, yeah, and 90, yeah.
But he is a man of old-timey days. Like, we're talking like, what's his face? You know, like I'm already forgetting his name. But Kang, the old version of Kang.
Okay.
He comes from that era. He comes from eras of like workshopping, like, you know, his own scientific lab, you know, in the 1800s, if you will.
Yeah.
And so he's just lived on all this time, and he also became one of Apocalypse's, you know,
horsemen.
Not horsemen, but Apocalypse, I don't know what the word is, operated on him and enhanced him in some way.
Okay.
And so he has been manipulated by Apocalypse as well, which is why he looks like that.
Yeah,
he did not look like that before.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so he was a doctor, you know, whatever. But he's a very interesting character, and so I hope they actually do start to scrape the surface with him, because it's incredible, because it is the whole thing. It's a gene pool thing, scientific, all that DNA stuff, like he did with Nathan on the cartoon. Yeah, very much that character. And so Mr. Sinister and Remy, they themselves have a treacherous history behind them. Again, essentially dealing with the mutant massacre, as well as Sinister's own obsession with the viable mutant genes. And so Sinister constantly targets mutants that possess a certain potential. And so that's why the Summers family is so important to him. That's why people like Gambit are important to him, because they have this certain power to them that he's like, ooh, what if I made it better?
Yeah.
You know, he's constantly cooking. And so like you see on the show, you know, like he's working with Bastion to create this entire lethal army of mutant like hybrids. So in the comics, it's noted that Sinister even went as far as to operate on Remy's brain at one point, subduing the true potential that he had just so that he could keep him in his clutches. So Gambit is apparently so much more powerful, but because Essex doesn't want him to get there too quickly, he's put a muzzle on him, basically. So Gambit has the potential to be an Omega level, but because of Sinister, he's pulled him back. So it's kind of like, interesting. So we've not yet seen the potential of what Gambit can do, despite all things. But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic. And again, those two have rumored, like, they might have familial ties somewhere, but nothing's been officially proven. But, you know, those two, oy vey, they got bad blood for days, which made the Krakoa era very interesting because everybody was on the island. Yeah. The good and the bad people. So they just had to kind of jive together. But it's very interesting. I don't know. I would just really like to see him in live action. And so, of course, again, there is none. However, in 2020's The New Mutants film, there is a bunch of Easter eggs calling back to Essex. So they call it Essex Corporation. And so it's all linked back to Nathaniel Essex, who is Mr. Sinister. So he's around somewhere.
He exists.
He exists. Someone else who exists is Victor Creed, a.k.a. Sabretooth. Oh,
Rar.
God. These guys. Did you say rar?
Rar.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, these two have a pretty gnarly history stemming as far back as Remy's late teens into his early 20s. And so in that particular storyline, Remy was attempting to steal this famous jewel necklace called the L'Étoile. And so it happened to be stolen by a beautiful French woman by the name of Genevieve. And so she stole it from a married man who tried to have an affair from her.
Jeez.
So...
It's messy.
X-Men are so messy, dude. They're so messy.
God.
And so Genevieve steals the necklace. Remy finds out she's stolen the necklace. Remy then intercepts her, uses his charm,
of course,
to bed her. And all the while, Sabretooth is on their tail. And so they don't know this. And so Sabretooth has been assigned and paid to get the necklace. And then, you know, Creed is also insane. He's quite literally insane. And so after a night, Genevieve wakes up, Remy is gone, but the necklace is also gone. And so he has spent a whole week whining and dining this woman.
Yeah, courting her and everything.
Only to wake up and steal her stuff.
Yeah.
He goes off and then she's like, Remy? And so what happens is that Creed then is... Whereas he was like on Notre Dame, and Remy realizes, oh, he's kidnapped my brother. So Remy LeBEAU is Remy's adoptive brother.
Yeah.
Creed is on Notre Dame holding two ropes, and both of them are hanging from the ropes. One is Genevieve and one is Henry. He's like, hey, we do trade? Let's trade. And Remy's like, okay, don't be crazy. I'll give you, it's fine.
Yeah.
And he gives him the necklace and Creed just drops it anyway. And he's like, whoops. And Remy is forced to choose. And he reaches out and he grabs a rope and it's for his brother. To which Genevieve falls to her death.
Yeesh.
He runs to her and he's like, I'm so sorry. And the messed up part of all is that as she's dying, he's cradling her in his arms. She looks up at him and says, why didn't you just ask me? I would have given it to you.
Damn.
And he's like, and she dies.
Damn.
So it's his first lesson of like, oh, love is a thing. Because yeah, he was very much like willy-nilly, didn't care. And so, yeah. And so that story stemmed a bunch of other stories relating to Creed and Remy, and they just don't get along. And so he takes him down in the danger room, like he's being held captive at one point. Gambit like beats him up like an old dog, and then they just try to gut each other almost as much as Wolverine and Sabretooth do.
Yeah.
But it's all because, they'll never be good. Because again, Sabretooth is crazy. And so, of course, Sabretooth, Victor Creed, portrayed by Tyler Mane and Michael James Olsen and Liev Schreiber in the Foxverse. So obviously they have no crossover in the first film. They barely share screen on Origins. Again, Creed is on his way out as Gambit comes in. There's nothing going on. It's, again, see, like, the more you think about it, it's like, wow, they really just, like, lost out. Like, they could have had so much substance given to this character. And they just, like, went, it's okay.
Yeah, sounds about right.
It's so much stuff. Fox. So next on the list, oh, boy. Eric Magnus Lencher, Magneto. Jeff's just shaking his head.
Nah. He was right, but nah.
I agree. That's exactly right. I agree. I'm like, Magneto was right, but not about that. Yeah. So where do we even start? Let's just say X-Men 97 scrapes the surface on the giant iceberg that is the love triangle of Rogue, Gambit, and Magneto. And so, aside from the expected tropes of good guy versus bad guy, a serious amount of these two's problems is that it stems from the trial of Gambit that we just talked about earlier. And so mostly in part that he put Gambit on trial to begin with. So there's this entire thing that I've talked about this man named Joseph. So there was this man that was Joseph. He was presumably Eric, who had lost his memories. He got mind wiped, right? And so they were like, oh, he's a good guy now. He's great. No, he was a clone. Eric was still around. He was doing his bad things on the other side. And so during this trial, Eric has actually he has put on this armor, this costume of this man named Eric the Red, who was a Shi'ar spy of the Imperial Agency. And so Eric was guised as Eric the Red. And so he put Gambit on trial in Antarctica along with other X-Men to testify against him. And so at one point, he not only made Rogue make contact with Remy to learn the truth of what he did during the Mutant Massacre. Yeah. To which she calls it like mental rape, by the way. She literally says that in the comic. She's like, I can't believe you made me do that. Oh, it's really messed up. But so she learns the truth of his shortcomings, but then Eric even recorded, apparently. So again, let me just quickly rewind. Antarctica, something happens that all their powers get subdued. They're gone.
Dang.
Gambit Rogue, they're like, Gambit's like, Cher, this might be the only time that we might be able to do this ever. And she's like, all right. They have their moment, finally. Eric apparently filmed the entire thing.
Whoa.
Exactly.
That's dark.
It's messed up. And so then he was like, all right, dog, I'm going to put you on trial and make everybody find out what you did. Because
in Antarctica.
No, in the Mutant Massacre. But it takes place in Antarctica. So he put him on trial for his bad behavior back in the day. But he's also being like a complete sociopath. And that's just one part of it. You know what I mean? Like Antarctica was such a big deal. It was such a big deal. And then to which, sure, things go down. Everything starts to, go to shit. I'm saying shit a lot in this episode. And as they're escaping Antarctica, Rogue saves Remy. Remy is so subdued. He's so depressed that he wants to die at this point. He feels horrible. And so he's already going through it. Rogue tries to rescue him and he's like, no, they get out of this explosion, whatever it was. And he's expecting that she will take him and fly away with him to save him. She leaves him there.
Damn.
Leaves him on Antarctica with nothing. They all leave. They're all gone. He is alone by himself on Antarctica. And he says, but I love you. And she goes, you're just going to have to find your way. Oh, he's like, how am I supposed to get home? And she goes, you don't have a home anymore.
Damn.
Not with us, not with me. And she leaves that classic look of the Queen of Hearts card just falling on the snow. And so he was left to then find his way home from Antarctica. But you know what? He did it.
I'm sure.
But yes, Eric and Remy do not get along.
Yeah.
Nope, they don't get along. And there's a bunch of other reasons. We don't have enough time to go through all of them. Just go read the comics. I trust every single one of them has to do with Rogue. So make of that what you will.
There's always got to be a woman involved.
There's always a woman involved. So again, Eric Magnus Lencher, Magneto portrayed first by Sir Ian McKellen, then Michael Fassbender in the Foxverse, and of course a huge nod to Matthew Watterson, the voice of Magneto in X-Men 97. So no live action crossover whatsoever. But oh boy, is there crossover in X97. Oh my God. Whew. I can't wait to see that just unfurl even more, because it's gonna. We got another season full of that hullabaloo.
I know, and it's going to be
promise.
such a different dynamic.
Oh yeah, hundreds
God.
%. Because again, like you said, or like my friend Boss Logic said on Twitter, Gambit died in the friend zone. Remember it? I was like, bro.
He did.
But he did, and it's sad. And so it will be very interesting to see what happens with them, and if they do Age of Apocalypse and all that crazy stuff where they have a baby. Rogan, Magneto, not Gambit. Sad. Yeah. So yeah. Gambit been through it with some of the other boys.
Damn, I'm feeling for him.
Right. So at long last, other versions and in other media. So not quite a variant. I wanted to start out with an incredibly prominent version of its own right, especially if you've seen X-Men 97 in its entirety. There was a time when Remy became an apostle and servant of apocalypses in the comics, taking on the position of Horseman Death. So it was initially a strategic move on Gambit's part to protect and save the X-Men. However, it severely backfired. This should sound very familiar, because Beau DeMayo himself has said, because when people are like, what is the deal with Gambit versus the Sentinel? And he's like, he miscalculated. He underestimated his opponent. And so that is synonymous to what he did in the comics with Apocalypse. He thought, all right, if I do this, he thought 100%. He's like, I can beat him, protect everybody, it'll be okay. But unfortunately, it backfired hard. And so him, along with Sunfire, the two of them became Horsemen and went after the X-Men. And Gambit, again, I mentioned this in the Rogue episode or X-Men 97 episode, Gambit nearly kills Rogue. Like he has to be put down in a hard way for him to stop, because he almost kills her. Yeah. But he thankfully stopped, and he then fled with Sunfire after Apocalypse's defeat in order to revive himself from the death. Yeah, because it's sort of like it's almost like a Black Suit Spider-Man issue. Oh, you gotta. It brings out the worst in them. Yeah. And so you have to suppress it and not let it have power over you. So thankfully he was able to get out of that. So it will be interesting, because this is inevitably his future in X-Men 97. Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. In similar popularity, the Remy LeBeaU of Earth 295 is a great take on the character. And so, again, reminder, in that universe, Charles Xavier died and Magneto stepped up to be in his position, which should also sound familiar. He then formulated the X-Men in a dystopian version of the world ruined by Apocalypse. And so that was the Age of Apocalypse. Remy took to his own team, breaking off to lead the group known as the Externals, alongside his love interest Lila Cheney, Guido Carosella, he's also known as Strong Guy, Jubilee, and Sunspot. So, what is very interesting about every name that I just mentioned, aside from Lila, is that they've all had cameos on X-Men 97. Yeah. So again, if they go Age of Apocalypse route, they have all the key players in position to go where the story goes. And
Rogue and Gambit are going to fight.
Yeah, pretty much.
Gambit's going to almost kill her.
They're destined to fight and get to that point. There's just no other way. And And so in Age of Apocalypse, Remy wasn't entirely without Rogue, despite her being married to Magneto with a child, however.
A child.
Yeah, named Charles. The two had romantically been linked before, during, and somewhat after her marriage to Magnus and Charles, the birth of her son Charles. And so Remy, as always, he's lovesick over the Southern Belle, no matter. I forgot I wrote this. As one could say, he loved her in every universe.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, now it makes you vomit?
Yeah.
You were feeling it about a year and a half ago when Multiverse of Madness came out.
But now I just want everyone to die. Dead.
We give you an inch and you take them all.
I'm just kill them.
Man.
Kill them all.
Oh my gosh. And so another media. So video games. This might be one of the few instances where we actually talk about every single subset of a character, because I got to give it up to the Gambit of Marvel vs. Capcom 2, where he's voiced by Tony Daniels, who happened to also voice Remy in the final season of X-Men, the animated series. So Chris Potter portrayed Gambit in 1 through 4. Tony Daniels portrayed him in 5. Then the show ended. Then they released a game, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. He was Gambit then. Then you fast forward to now, and it's AJ LoCascio.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's like 3 generations of Gambit right there. But yeah, I love Gambit in the video games. He's so awesome. He's been in another few, but man, MVC 2, that's always going to be home turf for me. And so, last but not least, in animation, speaking of, once again, we would be remiss to not mention the new kid on the block, Mr. AJ LoCascio. Latest take on the Gambit helm, rising to immediate fanatical stardom with X-Men 97. And of course, last but not least, my beloved Chris Potter, voice of Gambit in the first 4 seasons of X-Men, the animated series. So, fun fact, I interviewed Chris Potter long before this show. So even before I began podcasting, it was during COVID in 2020. I interviewed him with Peter Melnick and our wonderful friend Eddie Wilson, who listens to the show, for their podcast, The Marvelists. And so this was literally in 2020. Dang. It was like like COVID had just started, like lockdown had just started.
Oh, wow.
And so we talked to him for almost 2 hours straight. Yeah. And so it was just before his birthday, and we were really getting into it. We jumped all over the board.
Yeah.
It was great. But yeah, you can find that. Just search The Marvelists Chris Potter, and it'll come up anywhere you look for your podcast. Yeah, had a great talk. My audio quality was crap because I was using my phone, and so it was terrible. So was he, and so only Eddie and Peter sound amazing because they were in a studio at the time. But it was a great interview. Yeah, he's a very insightful man, very funny too. But yeah, Go listen to that. Absolutely love Chris Potter. And so for Almost Was, now, Geoff, you get your time. A surprise to nearly no one, Channing Tatum was attached to the role in a proposed film about Gambit, written by Josh Zedumer, who wrote the RoboCop remake in 2014. After Disney's acquisition of Fox, however, Disney canceled it in May 2019. Less than a year before its last recorded proposed release date.
Wow.
So it was supposed to be made, supposed to be already in final post-production.
Yeah.
And they were like, nah, bye.
Feige has ideas, so he's like...
He came right in.
Yeah.
He's like, no. Why can't he do that with Sony, man?
Amy won't let him.
I know. I gotta say, like, doing all these Spider-Man Mondays, like, again, it's so wild to kind of start from the beginning and really go through each film. And now we're almost at the end. Yeah. And to see the progression, because I was very set on the fact that I was like, nah, I like Tom Holland, but I don't think his movies are that great. And then in hindsight, I'm like, no, actually, they're really good. And actually, the old ones are actually pretty bad. But again, I mean, still, we got to rescue everybody else from Sony because, my God. But yeah, thankfully, they did not go through with this Gambit solo film. I was rooting for it for a minute because it did sound compelling. It was supposed to be a very street level, backwoods, Assassin's Thieves Guild treatment in New Orleans, or New Orleans, and so it sounded really interesting. But I still was never sure if they could do that successfully. Was Channing Tatum really gonna be able to hold that film and carry it through the birthing process that is a fandom like X-Men? You know what I mean?
Fair,
I don't know. But yeah, we'll never know. Maybe, mostly.
We'll never know.
Until he shows up in Deadpool versus Wolverine. I don't know.
But even that's just going to be a gratuitous.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Camo.
I'm so nervous. But related but not related, it said that Bryan Singer actually wanted Keanu Reeves to take on the role in 2006's X3. But clearly that did not happen because he was busy with some Matrix film. I'm not sure which one. But speaking of Bryan Singer, so Chris Potter actually shared a very interesting Gambit-related tidbit with us on that episode that I interviewed him on. And so, let's listen to it right here.
Well, no, I did after all of the years of doing the X-Men animated series. I was called in to audition for the first movie, but to play Cyclops. And I went in and I met with them, and the whole time thinking, I don't really want to play Cyclops. I want to play Gambit. But Gambit, I found out, wasn't in the movie. So we had the initial meeting, and I remember that the director, Bryan Singer, poked his head in a video camera and kind of gave me a up and down and then look, and we continued the meeting. He disappeared, and it never went any further.
So
interesting.
So he went in to audition for Cyclops, but he was like, I want to be Gambit.
He's like, come on.
Yeah.
I'm literally him.
Yeah, exactly. He very much was, especially 24 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, oh my goodness. But yeah, that's some interesting, fun little tidbit there from Gambit. Not about Gambit, but about Gambit. So future of the character in the MCU. Geoff, come on, man. You got to put some good vibes in the air.
Oh, I mean, I think he's definitely going to show up, especially like with the 97. Sure. I think you're going to see a lot of new iterations of the characters that we've seen and then characters that we haven't seen in live action. Or, I mean, we have kind of, but like just like something fresh, something new, like a more prominent role in the MCU.
Do you think that they will flip X-Men on its head and follow the cartoon or the comic book version more?
I think... that's tough. Especially to do it in movie form.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
So
in the very least, do you think they'll at least follow the costumes?
Maybe, possibly. I mean, there's this whole thing about like the MCU-ifying like characters like...
Wanda is a great example.
Yeah, but that was good. Even people saying with Wolverine, people are... I mean, that's a different tangent, but like...
Yeah.
I mean, you have to modernize it. Like, obviously, the 97 ones look good because of the era that it's in, and it makes sense for that time. Like, imagine seeing like that...
Yeah.
Like word for word, bar for bar in live action. At some point, it's going to feel goofy.
Sure.
You know, I could be wrong, but there's ways to like just make it like feel real in the real world, because that's technically what the MCU is. It's these heroes
in a real
in the real like living world. So it's like you have to make it like look like at least like would someone wear this? Like cool. Then yeah.
Because I will say in the Krakoan era of X-Men, which is quite literally this last few years really, is that they took the suits that people loved and then they stripped them down a little bit. They took it down.
Yeah.
So they would remove like the excessive yellow in Cyclops' suit. So it's more all blue with like light blue tints.
Yeah.
They took Jean into another scape where it's green and blue. And so it actually complemented her well. Yeah. Then they took folks like Wolverine who were good from the get-go and just pulled the contrast down a little bit. So I think if they went that way, that'd be cool.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough, but
Because the storylines are so dense.
that too.
So dense.
Like you can't like do a 2.5 hour movie of introducing the X-Men.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, but like you still gotta find like the emotional gripe of it.
So, question for you: do you think they have to do proper introductions, or do you think almost like a fan servicey, not entirely, but to bring them all in and just be like, boom, 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 boom. These are the X-Men. Like, not quite Eternals, but kind of like Eternals.
Yeah, that's hard.
Because Eternals was 10. Straight up 10 people, boom.
Yeah.
These are the Eternals. Here's what they do. This is what they're doing.
Yeah.
Let's
I even
go.
think that they did a pretty like solid job at,
I think so too.
and to
Took me 2 watches, but I agree.
yeah, to care enough about those characters, like
Especially coming out cold with that.
like
group.
they're like I
Nobody
can off the
knew.
top of like there's some like I can name not name each, but like I can name a reason why I would care about each of those Eternals characters, like Barry Keoghan's character and Makari. Like, I care about that.
Yeah.
I'm botching their names.
I
I'm
know.
sorry.
I keep forgetting everybody's names.
I'm botching the hero name, but
Victor Timely, I just
Yeah.
remembered. You're good.
the big Asian dude, Eternal.
Yes.
See, like, I know I'm
No,
horrible,
I know.
but like
Makari,
I care about his character and his
I thought they were great.
and his relationship
Yeah.
with Angelina Jolie.
Tina.
See, I'm just gonna. That's all I got.
Yeah,
That's all I got.
you're good. We've covered them long ago.
But so I'm not saying it's not possible.
Sure.
You just have to care enough about and do each character justice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, why we fell in love? I mean, it's possible because why do we fell in love with Guardians?
Yeah.
And there's
Oh yeah.
and like to start out, there's 4 of them. Mm-hmm. You know, and we grew to love. It's like 7, 8 of them. 7.
Yeah.
Something
it's
like
kinda
that.
Wild, yeah.
So it's like it's possible. You just have to find writers,
Yeah.
creatives who care, and that's what X-Men 97 had. It had the creators who cared.
That's the thing. And that's something that actually Chris Potter does mention in their interview is that he, when I asked him full on, I was like, so have you heard anything about this new series that is supposedly being put together? And he says, no, I haven't heard anything about it, but I do know that the key to its success is that they need a Larry Houston.
Yeah.
If they don't have a Larry Houston, it's not going to work. And they did. They not only brought Larry Houston back,
and you brought the original showrunners in.
but they got a Beau DeMayo, who is, I've said it before, is basically the new Larry Houston.
Yeah.
He's the same. Well, I mean, they have different backgrounds, but
you find
he
people who
handled it
care.
with the care that Larry Houston
who
did.
knows the history,
Yes.
knows like what the fans want, and like also even for him, like this is what I want to see.
Right.
And you just have to find like people like who care.
Yeah.
At least in the slightest.
In the like James Gunn. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly
like-
right.
You know,
So do you have an idea of anyone who could potentially portray Gambit?
who could portray Gambit? That I don't know enough names.
I know. I feel like that, especially for the age demo that they're probably going to try and get.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar enough.
I just thought of one person off the top of the head, but that's just because he's been in recent.
Who? Tell
but
me.
Do you have somebody in mind?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Like, not even.
It takes me having to look at people while I'm watching anything. Like I just finished like Bridgerton and Shogun and all those shows, and every time I'm watching these shows, I'm like, okay, who could they play?
Yeah. Like,
in
is it
X-Men?
an American actor? Is it
Right.
a European actor?
Right.
Like,
Well, I tell the people all the time that this actor, speaking of Bridgerton, from season 1 of Bridgerton, Roger Jean Page.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
If we're gonna go like flip the make him a man of color
Yeah.
from the Bayou.
Sure.
I was like, Roger Jean would be my choice.
The person I just thought of was strictly because of physicality of like how they like look and maybe the structure of
Sure.
their face.
Yeah.
It was Glenn Powell.
Out of my house. Come on. He was up for Star-Lord, wasn't he?
Was he? I don't think.
Oh, I think I'm thinking Glenn Howard. Glenn Howard?
I'm thinking of
maybe?
Glenn Powell. Yeah. Glenn Howard. He sounds like a doof.
No, that's not him. Well, a Glenn, the guy from Sunny. Always Sunny. I think was. Anyway.
Rob McElhenney?
No. But yeah, he seems like the everywhere man now too, though.
That's what people are saying. People are saying like, oh, he just came out of nowhere.
He's everywhere.
He kind of didn't. He's been in
Glenn Howerton.
Yeah, okay.
Auditioned for Star-Lord.
I am not thinking of that guy.
But yeah, Glenn.
Like I said, strictly physicality, face structure, possibly. But that's only.
Oh, and what? Sydney Sweeney is Rogue?
No.
See?
I didn't say that. I'm just saying Glenn Powell.
Nah.
He has.
I think he's out of their demo. I think they're thinking real young, not real young, but like.
Watch, you're gonna hire him, and you're gonna be so mad.
I'm gonna be so mad. Oh man, no.
Then again, like, look, who knows?
And he's a handsome man. I just also.
And he has like that deep kind of like that voice.
I've not seen anything he's in.
Yeah, so he has like that kind of like a deeper like tone voice.
Yeah.
Like a very bass like.
Apparently he wants to be Green Lantern or he wants to be Batman. Oh yeah, I saw that today. He was saying that like if he was Batman, he would be closer to Michael Keaton's version.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that today.
So, but then again,
yeah,
it's like who knows if that's even in the cards.
See what you did there.
Like who knows?
Yeah,
like when whenever they're thinking of.
I truly don't know.
Like hiring like the MCU X-Men.
Okay, I can see it now. I can see it.
Yeah.
You got to add some dirt onto his face.
That's what I'm saying.
I see it.
You
got
some dirt in your eye, punk.
Yeah. Okay. I see it now.
See what I mean?
Not for me. Still not for me.
But you see the.
But I see it. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
He can't be blonde. He has to have the dirty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I
think it was because how he looked in Top Gun Maverick.
I'm looking at his Vanity Fair photo shoot.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's like what that's why I said physicality.
Yeah. Interesting. He's definitely got the stature for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking of like how Gambit looks like when he was wearing that crop top in the first 2 episodes. What I mean,
that's pretty on.
Yeah,
that's pretty spot on.
Like when I think of of Gambit in the crop top,
sure,
I can see Glenn Powell rocking that.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
But
it was so funny. Like I was sitting next to a couple that I think I sat next to last week. Also, when I watched Far From Home. And I forgot which trailer came on, but he was just like. Zendaya and Glenn Powell are like the only 2 actors in Hollywood, apparently. And I was like, what? I don't even know why he said it. Like, he just said it out of nowhere.
Just tired of like.
I guess so. Yeah, he is like easily in his 40s. But I was like, that's an interesting take. Yeah, I don't know. I think that even though he does look like he would be great, I just feel like they're still gonna go younger.
They might.
Yeah,
I mean, who knows? Like I said, who knows when this gets
when it gets made?
When this gets greenlit.
But that's why I think they're gonna go younger because they're like, well, we're gonna need you for 10 years, like they did with Tom Holland. You know.
So,
I have no dream casting at all.
And I feel like when they do the X-Men casting, it's gonna be people like you.
Oh, it's gonna be bonkers.
You don't know, like you wouldn't expect any of them. Just like with the.
I hope so. Yeah.
Just like with the Fantastic Four.
I hope it's a good mishmash of people that are sort of known and then not known at all.
Look at the Fantastic Four. Like people were like,
yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're not on social media and you're not into that rumor mill of things, like I'm sure if you saw that casting, you'd probably be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah. Yeah. No, for real.
Like the guy from Stranger Things who plays heavy metal is Johnny Storm.
Exactly. Eddie Munson?
Cousin Richie?
Cousin.
Is Ben Grimm?
Exactly.
And then you have
like the killer agent double spy.
Yeah, and you have
lady.
Vanessa Kirby, who off the top of my head, who I remember from one of the Mission Impossibles, but I know she's
so amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And then you have Pedro Pascal.
Dadalorian.
Yeah, like the Mandalorian, probably like
Joel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like whoa.
Yeah.
And especially because you know, obviously the first family is predominantly, you know, white. So to like have like Pedro Pascal
up.
play Mr. Fantastic, you're like, oh, that is a choice.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, you have to understand, like, they've auditioned these people.
Exactly.
You can't like say that like they're just giving it to because he's the biggest. No, like I'm sure he auditioned for this.
There is an it factor.
Yeah.
For sure. But they're still doing the process.
Yeah. Sarah Finn is still
she's still
one of the best casting directors out there.
Yeah, and I'm sure at this rate they probably have narrowed it down to top 10 for each.
I wouldn't be surprised
major
if there was someone else in the running for Mr. Fantastic, but then like
what's his name?
And then they saw like Pedro like audition. They're like, whoa, like they saw his test, and it's like, damn.
Yeah, Raul Coley. He revealed that he was in the top running. And,
so it's kind of just like, and now it's like, now you're curious, how are these guys gonna play the Fantastic Four?
Right, exactly.
The first family that's gonna be set probably in the 60s.
Oh yeah.
And so like, yeah, you just never know. So when it does time come for the X-Men, like you're gonna get the core. Obviously, you're gonna hire the professor. You're gonna cast a Professor X because you're gonna need one because. Yeah, the original actors are kind of old.
This is the great thing about the foundation that X97 has kind of started, in that Wolverine does not have to be at the forefront of everything. So, with Deadpool and Wolverine coming out, and it kind of being like Hugh's last hurrah, they can officially dial it back if they really wanted to and be like, no, Wolverine will either take a back seat or he will not be here. Period.
And that's fine.
Because they can give everybody else a chance to finally be in the forefront, because that is a big reason as to why people looked at Cyclops the way they did, because James Marsden was not even in the films that much. He's not even in X3. He's in it for 5 minutes. Not even 5 minutes. He's probably in it for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, he's supposed to be the leader of the team, and yet
there.
Consecutively pushed aside for Logan because he was the moneymaker. So we'll see what they end up doing.
Yeah, I don't know how they will start to incorporate the X-Men family and their problems into the MCU kind of microcosm. Yeah. But obviously,
I will say, I think that they will cold introduce them already established. A lot of them.
Sure.
Like, they're not going to take them all to square one again. Maybe they'll jump around the timeline and have like Deadpool says in the trailer, like an Act 3 like flashback.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to be like showing them all at the same time. Like, this is the exact moment that their powers manifested, and then a fast flash forward, they're all at the X-Men. Like, no, I think they're going to come in. They're going to be the X-Men already.
Yeah.
Especially somebody like Gambit.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Look, I think X-Men or Deadpool Wolverine is gonna be a palate cleanser.
It's gonna be so crazy.
So, and then like whatever happens there, that'll start to like set up like this X-Men part of. I know we're still in the multiverse saga, but I know it's gonna set off even more things. Yeah.
Oh man, it's gonna be good. It's a good time to be an X-Men fan. I said this many times before, but my God.
Yeah, like I'm like,
now you get it.
Like I'm converting.
Yeah, right. Oh, by the way, I had a prediction that if Kith comes back to San Diego with another collection, I think it's going to be Deadpool.
That would be insane.
It'd be wild, right?
I wonder if they are.
Deadpool Wolverine.
I'll keep on the lookout.
Yeah. But yeah, so to complete the episode, suggested reading. I see these all the time, but I'm going to repeat them. So 1993's Gambit solo title from creative team Howard Mackey, Lee Weeks, Claus Janson, and Steve Buccellato. Amazing 4-issue series, one of my all-time favorites. Lots of thieves, lots of assassins going on. It's a great time. That's when Rogue absorbs Belladonna's memories of Gambit, and some ish goes down. 2012's Gambit solo title from creative team James Asmus, Clay Mann, Seth Mann, and Rochelle Rosenberg. More semi-grounded with fantasy elements. Spy thriller-esque Gambit. Loved it. Definitely one of my faves. 2023's Rogue and Gambit from Team Stephanie Phillips, Carlos Gomez, David Currell, and Federico Blee. And of course, X-Men Series 2, starting back in 91. I mentioned this a few times by now, but the entire run is solid. Numbers 1 through 50 if you just want to kind of nip it in the bud, and then read all 115 issues while you're at it. But also Uncanny X-Men 266, 375, Extreme X-Men, and Gambit and Externals, and then Deadpool and Gambit and all those other... Anything with Gambit, just read it. And it's a good time. And so with that, dear friends, is the end of the show.
Wow. I feel like I know this man inside and out.
And that's still not it all, but it's a lot of the most important stuff for sure. So thank you for listening. So our next episode, we're still in our X hype. So for the schedules are going to be getting a little weird for us in real life. So we're going to go and tackle another X-Men. We're keeping it simple. X-Men vibes are alive. So join us in a couple of weeks as we discuss all things Jubilee. So be back here in 2 weeks. And finally, a thank you to all of our Patreon supporters and a special We Are Groot salute to Ariel, Jenny, Andrew, Nats, Robin, Tyler, Ashley, Eve, Chris, Edgar, Laura, Andrea, Ed, Katie, Melanie, Sherry, and Joe Liz. Follow us on social at STRKCNTRST. And if you like what you hear, review, rate, and subscribe.
Woo!
Woo!
Once again, thanks for listening.
Missy.
And we will catch you in the next one.
Remember it.
Mon ami.
Bye.
Bye.
The name is God.